Okay, welcome back to Epicus Gamicus Metallicus, here for the second episode of Less Than Metal. If that's what I called it last week, I don't know, but I guess we'll find out. Anyway, this week we're doing the discography of the Prodigy. And
Yeah.
if you're not an EDM fan, you've probably never heard of the Prodigy. Even if you are an EDM, you haven't heard of it. And actually, this week there's no Sean, because he doesn't like this sort of music.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So I brought my buddy L here, and he's kind of
Yes, I do like a lot of Prodigy's music. I like electronic influence music, and especially like this kind of like 90s breakbeat stuff, of course.
yeah. And you're more similar to me in that you started with metal and then you moved into other stuff. And
Oh, yeah, dude. I started on like Marilyn Manson and like all the big four thrash bands, of course, and all that.
yeah. And then unlike Sean, you realize that you can listen to other stuff.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, definitely, for sure.
Yeah. So I guess should we get started?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So the first Prodigy album is Experience, and
Right.
I'm not sure. Normally, you consider the Prodigy to be a breakbeat band, right?
I don't know what I'd call them. I'd say they're in that sweet spot between like drum and bass, and some break beat, some big beat. They called it. That's kind of what they were calling it, was big beat. But
Yeah.
yeah, their first album I would say is not any of those things. It's more like techno or rave, somewhere in between those.
Yeah, I'd call Experience more drum and bass style.
Right, right, yeah.
It's a lot faster than some of their. Well, some
Oh
of the songs
yeah,
are faster.
it's definitely faster than their all their other albums, by far.
Yeah. So first song we want to talk about is Jericho, which is probably about normal pace for the album, and it's got some weird sort of wubbing. I don't know if anybody else understands that, but on the drums it just sort of you have like a shaky sound to them. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
See, I think I know what you mean. I think I do. The drums aren't like very solid drum track. It's more like more back and forth, like wubby thing.
Yeah, like reggae drums. I guess is a good example.
Like the word wub itself will give you a good idea.
Yeah, it's what it sounds like. And then it's also got some weird. I put on my notes ethereal.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what I meant by that, but it's just. I guess that's the synth part. It's just in a different context, it could be a creepy sound, but with drum and bass, it doesn't really sound as creepy as it could.
Right.
Then there's another synth sound in there, which sounds like a European police car.
Oh
Like
yeah.
it's the same synth box that a police car uses over there. It's very interesting
Right.
use of sound.
Right. I mean, with this album, it was just so sample heavy. There's so much
Yeah, they use a lot of weird ass samples.
vocal samples, like that police boxy sound. For
Yeah.
me, with Jericho, what I did notice was all like the plucky thin synths, like the lead synths, and that's all over the album. It's like these like plucky synths, and they're all like just panning back and forth and around, and it's kind of like corny to me. Like their first album is a little bit novel compared to their other ones, but I definitely like it because it is essentially like a fun rave album, and it's meant to be like danced to. So in that sense, it's like a really good album. Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of samples, I think we should go to the second track I wanted to talk about,
Right.
which is Out of Space, which heavily uses a reggae sample from some song. I don't know what song it is, but it's I think the vocals go. The song goes, "Send him to outer space," something like that.
Right.
I feel like the Prodigy really like reggae vocals.
Oh yeah.
They sample them a lot.
I'm not sure if I'd call it reggae for sure, but it's more like a cultural thing. I would maybe say like it's like a dance hall-y thing, like a 90s dance hall
Yeah.
sort of thing. But it definitely comes from like their UK culture, like their European culture.
Yeah, that comes from the Jamaican part.
Right, right.
British culture.
Certainly, yes. With the track Out of Space, I felt like it was one of the tracks on the album that more so presented like their sense of humor,
Oh yeah.
like the vocal samples, but also that there was like this boinging sound that just kept going through the track, and I was like, well, okay. I mean, it's kind of a joke, but in like a good way. In a good way.
Yeah.
I liked it. I had fun.
It's definitely interesting, that song.
Yeah.
Was there any songs you wanted to talk about in this album?
Oh man. I made sure to write something about every one of them in case we went off and we talked about something, just in case. With the later albums I did, and I more so wrote like general ones, but with the early ones I went song by song for some reason. So a song I want to talk about is Weather Experience. It was near the end of the album. Do you remember it?
Not completely. Some like listening to the Prodigy, everything kind of melds together.
I felt like Weather Experience was like the one track on the album where like, I'm not saying it was better than the rest of the album. I think Jericho and like a bunch of other tracks were more fun to listen to. But Weather Experience for me, it started out almost like soundtracky. Like there's not a lot going on, and there's like a lot of movements to it. Like it starts out like kind of with these strings, and then in the middle it moves back into like that drum and bass sound, but at the end it goes back to this like main motif. It's like this soaring synth sound or string sound. Like it is on the album. You may have forgotten it, but it's definitely on
it's
there.
come back to me now.
It is like the one track where I was like, this kind of sounds ballady to me, but not in a bad way.
Well,
but
it is the longest song on the album. It's
oh
like
yeah,
8 minutes long.
It is the longest song on the album. It has like quiet section, breakbeat section, and then back to the quiet section, like reprises it, which I thought was like, it indicated like the ambition that would follow on the later albums, which is why it interested me.
Yeah. And I guess on this album I'd also like to mention Everybody in the Place, which is one of the faster songs on the album.
Oh yeah.
And the song starts with the drums are way faster than they were before. And I put schizophrenic drum and bass, which I like as a term I like to use a lot to describe that sort of 90s.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And then I mentioned something about high-pitched synths and vocals. I don't know what that's about.
Yeah, I mean, there's vocal samples all over this album. Like, there's all these like soul samples, like almost like Whitney Houston-y, but obviously no, Whitney Houston, they couldn't afford that probably. But when I heard this track, the thing that stood out to me were there were these bridge sections with these bells. I'm not sure how I would describe them, but they kind of sound like actual bells that you would hit with like mallets.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting. Like this album, to me, why it stands out, or what makes the first two albums different from Fat of the Land to me, is how the first two albums follow more like dance structure conventions, whereas Fat of the Land has like more pop conventions. I'll talk about this later, but yeah, a lot of these songs have like that dance structure where it's like you'll go into the intro, you'll have a verse, and then breakdown 1, breakdown 2, verse, and then maybe another breakdown in the song will end. But this one had like some, I don't want to call them after choruses, but it had some like little low-key bell sections that I thought made it stand out from the other songs.
Yeah, the first two albums are definitely more built towards rave culture.
Yeah.
And the third one is more hit singles.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely dancey. But the second one's less ravey. It's definitely more dark, but we'll get to it. Yeah, certainly.
Well, I think we're about done with Experience, so we can move on to the second album, which is...
Did you have any general things you want to say about the first album?
I mean, just that it's just kind of more drum and bass than anything else to me.
Oh yeah, it's definitely their most ravey. A lot of as an experiment, I went and I looked up what genre it would be listed as, and it was just like rave, and I was like, okay, that's fair, I guess. Like, I feel like it's more subtle than that, but that's fair.
All right, so the second album is Music for the Jilted Generation, which is definitely a
better album
towards rave in the name, at least.
Right. Yeah.
And one of the first tracks I want to talk about is a song called Their Law, which I feel is, at least on this album, the most indicative of the albums to come.
Oh yeah.
The
Oh yeah.
the more breakbeat style with big drums and stuff like that. What else did I put on here? And it's got an interesting. It's kind of driven by a guitar riff,
Oh yeah.
which is which is after listening to Experience a little different.
Yeah, this was the first album that they actually had like a real player come into the studio so they could just get their own samples, you know. It was a good choice, you know. The track Their Law, I mean that's probably like the first like track that they ever made that would be like their Prodigy sound, you know? Like it's got like all the elements there, even if it's in like an early stage. Something that made the track Their Law different from a lot of their singles, I think, is how it's kind of like moderately paced. Like it's not really fast. Like if you listen to it,
really, no.
yeah, it's sort of just mid tempo. Which was probably the main thing I noticed that I wanted to say about it was how it was like, yeah, like this has like some riffs on it, but this isn't like super fast or anything.
No, it's definitely slower than most of the songs on Experience.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And then Jilted Generation also has a song called Voodoo People.
I really like this track. Yeah.
Which apparently made me think of the first album, based on my notes.
Oh yeah.
But it's got a lot more. I feel like the Jilted Generation kind of has more creative synth sounds than the first album.
Oh yeah.
They actually play around the cool synths where you actually want to do it with your fingers.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else does that, but when I hear a good synth, I like to do like I'm playing an analog synth or something like that.
That last album, I heard their first album, I heard it and I thought to myself like, wow, like a lot of these sound like very preset-y. Like these sound like they're going through presets on like some synth they bought, which isn't like a bad thing. Like a lot of bands in the 80s did that, but like Jilted, I definitely noted like there's a lot more sound design going on. Like they're definitely, all the people involved are definitely like more experienced and like they have more intent with what they're doing.
They actually know how the synthesizer works and
Oh.
stuff.
Oh yeah, but even on like an engineering and a production level, like when you hear it, like there's more like layering going on. Like it just feels like there's more like attention put into like the experience of it, you know?
Yeah. As a second album should be.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah.
And the other song I put on here is Poison, which is a slower song, which I take to mean is slower than everything else. And it's got a really great synth in there as well. It's kind of hard to describe the synth, so I'm not going to bother.
Oh, right.
These are the songs you should check out if you're thinking about listening to the album, but aren't really sure, I guess.
Right. Poison, I wrote a little bit about how, like, to me, Poison has, like, this looming, constricting feel to it. Like, you feel like, you get that feeling, like, when you're in, like, a really narrow tunnel, and, like, there's just, like, a lot of noise going on. Like, it's very, I thought of a word earlier, but I don't have it anymore. But what I definitely noted was there was like this saw blade sound that's in the track.
Yeah.
And there's like a lot of elements that just repeat like the whole time, like looping. So it's like every time it just beats down on you more, and then like he keeps adding stuff. And then like throughout the track he experiments with different. Well, I mean they all experiment with different sounds, and it's kind of like a display of like a bunch of different sounds to me, at least on that album.
Yeah, definitely. What do you want to talk about?
Oh man, there was a track
Somewhere.
called Full Throttle that I really liked. It's like the third, yeah, it's like that third track on the album.
Fourth track
on the album. And I just thought, listening to this album, it's been a while since I've heard it, and I was thinking about how on the album there's a lot of this juxtaposition of these bright, more organic sounds and these darker, more like synthetic sounds. Like, especially on Full Throttle, there's like this piano sample that plays, but at the same time, there's also these weird like alien spaceship sounds going on. There's like these choppy, almost like broken up samples. And yeah, I mean, to me, it's like a very conceptual track, and like to see that in such a short amount of time, they just grew so much farther in like their like ambitions. I mean, it's such a drastic change from experience, so that's just like a very good on the band to me.
Yeah. Is that Jilted done then? My summary of this album would be that it's halfway between Experience and Fat of the Land.
Right. I would kind of agree with you. I'd say it's different from both of them in like a way. I feel that Jilted is a little bit more like mid-pace in like a lot of the tracks, and whereas, you know, their first album is more of like a producery, like made directly for raves kind of album, and then Fat of the Land is like an in-your-face, almost pop album. This is something else. Like, this is more like maybe like an industrial band a little bit. Well, like it feels more like that than like Experience or Fat of the Land does. But again, like it's not like a full-on industrial album. It just has that vibe where it feels like you're in like a very small venue. It's like the floorboards are rotting or something. Whereas the other two, you really don't get that. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot more well produced and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah.
All right, so now I guess we're on to the classic album.
Oh right, yeah.
Fat of the Land. And this is definitely when they were at their peak popularity, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely, for sure.
Late 90s.
Right.
Probably helped that this was a time period where the British were listening to mostly British music and weren't bothered by what was going on over here. So it, just by being British, they are successful there.
All right.
So the first track, and I want to talk about, and the first track on the album is Smack My Bitch Up, which is not as violent as it sounds.
Right, yeah.
But this is definitely the best example of the breakbeat or big beat style that the Prodigy are famous for in it. And it's like there's 3 tracks on the album which are kind of like core Prodigy songs. And this is the one that I think is the most interesting because of the way they put synths in with the drums. They have a sort of synth which is going, it feels like it's going different places and back and forth.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, definitely it's going everywhere, dude.
Yeah.
It's just nuts. Man, Smack My Bitch Up. I mean, what is there to say about the track that has been already said? It's probably, in my opinion, the best Prodigy single. I mean, the first thing I mentioned this, the first thing that you really notice when you listen to Smack My Bitch Up, when you compare it to everything before, is how like this feels more like a pop group or like a rock band, whereas like there are more defined roles in the band, and like Flint has like this frontman position sort of, even though like the hook is actually like a sample. It's not Flint, and Flint's more on like Firestarter and the other tracks.
We'll talk about him a bit later.
Right, of course. There's more like defined roles, and like the song structure itself, just like the intro, the verse, the chorus, the verse, the chorus, and then there's like a bridge. So it definitely feels less out of the realm of like rave culture. It's like easier to understand. So I mean, that probably played like a big role in like the success of the single, along with like controversy, the videos, and like everything else. But yeah, it's an amazing track. The production, I don't think there are many other Prodigy tracks that just came together so well in like all the aspects as Smack My Bitch Up.
Oh yeah.
It's a great track.
And then the other, I guess the track that best represents the new vocalist.
Oh yeah.
Well, I guess he's actually the first vocalist because they didn't really have a vocalist before.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Is Breathe, and his vocal style is kind of, I'd call it sort of partway between punk and metal.
Right.
Which is why I think the Prodigy are a band that metalheads should listen to, because the vocals definitely lean towards that.
Oh yeah, for sure. When I was listening to this and I was writing notes for this, I did comment on that track about his vocals, but I called it him a scummy English hobo, which is how I really feel about it. I mean, the vocal distortion, which I looked it up. There are small sections where it's distorted. That's actually the backing vocalist. But I feel like the juxtaposition between like this like really dirty Englishman yelling at you and then like these like distorted backing vocals. I mean, to me. I feel like they were trying to evoke that industrial feel that was going on because like Marilyn Manson and Nine Inch Nails like blew industrial into like this commercialized mainstream pop appeal item. So like certainly like Breathe has all those elements together and like. It's probably the second best single on the album after Smack My Bitch Up, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great track.
And then there's also a track on here called Diesel Power, which I'm not going to spend too much time on, but I just thought it was interesting to mention because that's actually rap.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think there's any other rap songs in the Prodigy's catalog. I might be wrong, but...
I think there's a few on the later albums, but not on this one. No, not really.
It definitely doesn't... You don't notice it as much as you do as this song.
There was right there you got a rap track on Always Outnumbered, of course.
Oh yeah.
And then I feel like there was one on Invaders Must Die, but I didn't really like the one on Invaders Must Die if my memory served me correctly. But anyway, all conjecture. What do I have anything to say about that track, Diesel Power? I feel like I wrote something. Oh yeah, right. So this album came out in 97 or 98? 97. So I said in my notes, like, I didn't really like the rapping in this, but it's not because it's necessarily bad. I just felt like the rapping was a little bit like behind where rap was in 97. I mean at the time you had like great albums like Del the Funky Homo Sapien, Company Flow, Outkast, everybody doing like more complex raps, and the rapping here sounds more like 92 era rap, like more like an NWA type rapping, which is fine, but it's a little bit behind rap. But it maybe more like showed where the British scene was, but I'm not too up on like late 90s English rap, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't know much about British rap. It's kind of it's kind of an enigma.
I mean,
I just know about some random bands here and there.
There's a lot of grime that's coming out this decade that I know about, and there's a couple things here and there from the last decade I know about, but nothing before that. I mean,
I was listening to some 80s British rap today.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Well, we're getting distracted now. So
That's crazy. Yeah.
Back to Prodigy.
Yeah. Right.
Anyway, so the next song I want to talk about is Firestarter, which I'm not sure, but I think is the most popular Prodigy song. It's kind of...
I mean, it might be. I mean, I think it might be, but I think Smack My Bitch Up is like the one a lot of people would agree is better.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying
a better track.
Firestarter is nowhere
Oh
near
yeah,
as good.
Firestarter is like probably the most popular single. Yeah.
But it's a bit more bare bones Prodigy, less weird synths and stuff. It's just...
Oh yeah, definitely.
And I think the music video was very popular because it's kind of creepy.
Oh yeah, it's nuts.
Yes.
I mean,
it's called Firestarter. What do you expect?
Flint just changed his whole look from like backup dancer to like smelly English hobo.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so fast.
Just being as creepy as possible.
Yeah, dude. It was fantastic. Yeah, that was a great change.
Was there anything you wanted to say?
About
Any songs?
about Firestarter, I could just make a quick comment. Um
I meant other songs.
oh, right. Right, yeah. I mean, I feel like I wrote about. Oh yeah, so my favorite track of this album is the track "Serial Thriller." I can't really explain why I like it so much. But what I wrote down to remember is that there's like these compressed bass synths going on in the album, so it really has like this fat, like hitting you over the side of the head sound to it. But I think the thing that makes the track, it's one of Flint's best vocal performances. I can't even explain what it. Well, like, he sounds so sleazy on it. Like, you just don't want to be near him. Like, I get so great. Like, every time I listen to that track, it just makes me feel like I'm there, which I feel like a lot of great music does, which is probably why I like it so much. But yeah, it's a fantastic track.
Cool.
It's great.
So I guess just sum up now.
All right.
I'd sum up this album as just classic Prodigy. Breakbeat, big beat, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
That's their classic style.
Right. I would sum it up as probably their most focused period. Like,
Yeah.
they were so, like, they just had
Now
everything
we move
together.
on to the part of their history where they spend years making albums. The next album doesn't come out till 2004. And that
Right.
album is always outnumbered, never outgunned.
Right, yeah.
And this album is kind of interesting when you compare it directly to Fat of the Land, because you can definitely tell that it's not from like 2000 or something. It's from a little bit further down the road.
Right.
It's a little more. I guess that's just how the EDM was in that part of the 2000s. It's just evolved from the 90s to whatever it became. I don't know.
Oh yeah, dude. I mean when you're comparing like 97 to like 2004, I mean, that's just such a big difference. I mean, that's a lot of different like trends in electronic music coming and going. I mean, you have like Square, Aphex Twin. I mean, he was doing his best stuff like around 2000, and then oh man, I actually wrote down his name so I would remember to mention it to you. Oh yeah, Square Pusher. Of course, he's one of the greatest electronic musicians of all time. Like, around this time, he was doing his best stuff. So, like, these people were, like, evolving stuff way far. So, when I listened to them back to back, I was just thinking about, like, how much stuff happened between that. And, like, the, like, clear difference. But then I actually looked into it. And there were some tracks on this album that the main guy, I can't remember his name. But he's not Flint.
Liam Howlett?
Yeah, Liam. A bunch of these songs weren't written for Prodigy. It was written for his side project.
Oh, okay.
Right. They were written for his side project, and then he like threw them on the album. And so like there's some tracks where I can tell like, that's why it sounds like that. Like,
Yeah.
because you weren't trying to make a Prodigy track, so it sounds way different.
I guess I guess they decided to just push Prodigy in a different direction then.
Oh yeah.
To try and make another Fat of the Land. They came up with something else. I think this album, it kind of endears itself more to rock fans than the other couple albums.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't have more guitar or anything in it. It's just the way the songs are structured. They fit in with like the mid 2000s alternative scene.
There's a bunch of tracks on here with like lots of just thick, fuzzy electric guitar. I mean,
Yeah. Well, I was trying to say,
as well.
Point out,
But
that
like,
I'm not calling it rock. I'm just
I
saying,
know, like the way that it's put together, it does have like a definite rock vibe to it. I do agree with that.
Yeah. So the first track on the album is called Spitfire, and I think with this album a lot, from this album onwards, they like to use really like drums that just sound like an explosion.
Oh yeah.
Just small explosions instead of drums.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And Spitfire is very indicative of that. Do you want to say anything about Spitfire?
I didn't have anything written about Spitfire specifically. Oh wait, no, that's the first track. Oh, I do remember that one.
It's a good intro, I think.
I'm gonna be honest. This is my second least favorite Prodigy album. I really don't like these
Really?
tracks. No,
Wow.
no. Spitfire to me, it's really loud, but it kind of lacks a lot of subtlety, and there's like a lot of non-self-awareness. I don't dislike this album as much as the next one, but Spitfire, like there are 3 or 4 tracks on this album I do like, but Spitfire's not one of them.
Yeah.
No.
I think I just wrote it down because it's a good intro song, but
It definitely is like instrumentally, it does have like a lot of cool like production aspects to it, like a lot of cool soundscaping stuff.
moving on to what is this? 4th track, which is Get Up, Get Off, which is the rap
Ooh,
song
yeah.
that he saw earlier.
Yep.
And this song is kind of it's fast rap,
Oh yeah, for
which is
sure.
always interesting. And I feel like, I don't know, this is maybe best or second best on the album, but it still kind of has the beats of drum and bass and breakbeat and all that, but it still has that pseudo rock sound to it that
Oh yeah.
endears alternative fans to the Prodigy, I guess.
I'm gonna be honest. This isn't even my favorite rap track on the album.
That's just sad.
But yeah, I didn't really like. I feel like I wrote a note about it, but I've been looking and there's nothing about it. So I'm just gonna say it's not even my favorite rap track on the album. So there were industrial influences. Honestly, like this is just like what if? I just feel like this album would have been better without like any live instrumentation, like the like industrial elements. I'm not sure if they worked here. Like, like a lot of the better tracks were the ones like with less. I don't know. It's like a less is more situation,
Yeah.
right?
Well, my favorite song was Hot Ride.
That's my favorite song.
Okay. And I feel like that song sounds, it seems like something that Nine Inch Nails fans would like.
Maybe. Sounds like early Manson to me, like Jack Off Jill. Like it really reminded me of Jack Off Jill.
Yeah. I guess it's those.
But yeah, it is like that South Florida sort of like Nine Inch Nails influence thing going on.
Does feel like, it's not, I wouldn't really call it industrial. But
No.
it's kind of got an industrial vibe to it, like you were saying earlier.
Right. I wrote a note about. Oh God, where did I put it? Oh right. So to me, there's like a campy vibe to it, like this like Scooby-Doo-ish, like Hammer horror type vibe, or maybe it's just like the like vocalists, like her inflection on it, or maybe it was like the way the melodies are put together. But like I could definitely see like a like Scooby-Doo chase sequence to this.
Yeah.
Which is like not why I like it. I like it because it's well put together, but like it did kind of make me laugh thinking about it.
Yeah, no, I associate most of this stuff with Dirt.
Right.
Dirt 2 used a lot of Prodigy songs in its soundtrack.
Oh right, yeah.
And while I was listening to these albums, I was playing Dirt Rally the whole time. So.
Oh right, yeah.
But let me tell you, I got a lot better at Dirt Rally listening to Prodigy. It's good. It's good rally driving music, apparently.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, great choice.
What other songs did you want to mention on this album?
Oh God, there were. Okay, the best rap track on this this was Wake Up Call with Cool Keith. I really liked that, which was funny because I was thinking of like good rap albums that came out in like the era of Fat of the Land, and I was thinking of like, yeah, Cool Keith, like he should have been on a Prodigy album, and then I was like, oh wait, no, he was on a Prodigy album, and so yes, here we are.
Actually, I think he did the rap on Diesel Power as well.
No wonder I liked that one. Yeah, I mean that was another track that I really thought was cool, but yeah.
Are we about done with this album then?
Yeah, I mean, Cool Keith. That's
All right.
that's all I have to say about this album.
Yeah, I guess I'd say this album is just kind of an in-between album. It's not really like Invaders Must Die. It's not really like The Fat of the Land.
Yeah.
Just kind of a unique mid 2000s album.
To me, it's like when you like haven't worked out in a long time and you have to like build back your muscles.
Yes.
So like they're making tracks again so they can like,
It's the comeback album.
get back in the swing of
or
like
no, it's
flexing the
pre-comeback
muscles.
album, right?
Something like that. I don't know.
All right. So I guess we're moving on to Invaders Must Die,
Yes.
which came out in 2009.
Right.
And with this album, you can definitely hear the dubstep kind of influence of the. I don't know how you describe the dubstep sound, but
They had like dubstep people like collaborate with them on like one or two tracks as well.
yeah. So I guess it kind of helps the Prodigy stay modern.
Oh yeah.
Because if they'd released Fat of the Land in '09, that would have just sounded ridiculous. It wouldn't.
Yeah. I mean, I will agree, but I kind of do think that their last album, which we'll talk about next, was it more evoked the spirit of Fat of the Land to me.
Yeah.
And
Still being modern.
Right.
And I've listened to a lot of Invaders Must Die in the past, so I've put a few tracks on here.
Right.
First being the title track, which just kind of introduces the synth sound they use, which is really like jagged synths. The same sort of thing that a bunch of synthcore bands started using a few years later.
All right.
And
Yeah.
I remember reading a Metal Hammer article about a synthcore band, and it's like Invaders Must Die era style synths. So
Oh man. I'm gonna be honest. This is my least favorite Prodigy album. Like, this thing was like, I mean, the like that track you were just talking about. There's a lot of tracks on this album where the instrumentals could be good on their own, but the vocal performances are just so like painfully corny to me that I just can't listen to it.
yeah, I guess I can see your point. Maybe I like the corny.
It's very hard, but it's not even like fun corny. Like the Day Is My Enemy has like a lot of like self poking like fun corny tracks, but it's not like Invaders Must Die. Like I felt like Invaders Must Die, they were taking themselves way too seriously at the time, but that was just my take on it when it came out. I was like, oh god.
Well, yeah, I guess I can see that like in my favorite track, which is Omen.
Oh right, yeah.
Has some pretty silly vocals, but I like.
Omen.
I find the songs fun to sing, so I enjoy listening to.
Oh right, yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, certainly. I did note that there's more of like a rock influence on the vocals on this one for sure.
Oh yeah.
On this whole album.
Yeah, there's definitely more. By this point, there's a lot more vocals.
It's almost like singing now. Yeah.
Yeah, they've actually got proper vocalists instead of the first album where it was just some random samples thrown together, somewhat sound like vocals.
Hey, that was just some random soul samples, which
It's a different style.
I mean, that's kind of what like rave music was all about at the time. Like, how could you make a rave music without just throwing in vocal samples everywhere?
Yeah,
I mean,
work.
is it rave music? I strongly disagree.
This album has a lot of interesting stuff. I like the song Thunder. I don't know if you remember that one.
I did not write anything about it.
Oh, okay.
but for this one, I just wrote a more general thing so I wouldn't just like repeat myself, because there's a lot of tracks I just feel the same way about.
Rather appropriately, this song features some rather thunderous drumming.
Oh yeah. Dude, it's the Prodigy.
Yep. There you go. I don't know what I wrote.
You could write that for every song he's ever made.
Yeah, I listed "Take Me to the Hospital," but I'm not sure why. It must be good somehow.
Oh right, I did. Oh wait, I did try to write about the last couple tracks that you noted there. So I did try to have something to say about it. So "Take Me to the Hospital," I thought was like a really good single. But the synth sounds to me, there were a bunch of synth sounds here that I could have heard on their first album, Experience. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, kind of like these like plucky.
Some of the
sounds going on.
The lesser sounds, not the main one, but the under. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not really sure, because I remember hearing it pretty prominently, but it's not like the whole track. They're just some like plucky, like early '90s sounding stuff thrown in. But I was like, wow, that sounds like something on Experience. Is this like a reference, or I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, I think. Yeah, I don't know about that. But I think the last song I want to talk about is "Warrior's Dance," which I'm pretty sure is the one that is in Dirt 2. and it's got this it's a fast song, and it's got these sort of chirpy synth sounds that are really close together. So it's like, I guess it's kind of like a guitar solo with individual little synth sounds,
Right, certainly.
and it's and because of the way I'll talk about Dirt 2 some more. I guess this is a gaming channel, so whatever. But the way Dirt 2's soundtrack is set up, it doesn't play when you're racing, but when you finish the race and you get to the menu, it just sort of the music just sort of explodes in with the dropping graphics and stuff,
Oh yeah.
and it kind of like it kind of means that in your brain when you remember the game, you think that there's music all over it because they use it so prominently and they picked such good songs to use in that
Yeah.
part
Yeah, yeah.
that you just remember it, and it's always kind of like the end of the race. You're like, oh, what are they gonna play this time?
Yeah, with Warriors Dance, I thought it had the best sound. I wouldn't say scaping, more just sound creation, sound design. Like a lot of the sounds on that track were just excellent. I thought. Actually, what it sounded like to me was it sounded like it could have been on Fat of the Land. Like that's really what it sounded like to me.
Yeah, yeah. I guess it's one of the more retro songs on this album.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just the way it's constructed and everything, and like the vibe being put out. It's like it has that kind of like sleazy Fat of the Land. Like, you kind of feel like you're on like a lot of coke and you're dancing in like Copenhagen or something.
Sounds about right.
But yeah, that's certainly what Warriors Dance was like. And then I think it was one of the better singles from the album. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I might have misstated earlier that Omen was my favorite. I think Warriors Dance is actually my favorite.
Warriors Dance is probably the best single.
Yeah.
Or I don't think it was a single, but it's probably the best track on the album.
Okay. Was there any other songs on here?
I don't think so. I view this album more as a transition to the next one. That's how I view this one.
Yeah, and I'd sum this album up with it's got the jagged synths, and I kind of got a more digital vibe from the last two albums than the first four. It just sounds more like it was made by a computer, not by a synthesizer.
Right.
Could just be me.
Invaders Must Die. I mean, what I mostly noticed were was like the vocal performances. There was like a lot of like singing, but it almost sounded like pitch shifted. Like the pitches were a little bit too perfect for me. It sounded like Howlett went in the studio and like pitch shifted some stuff, but didn't really like understand the subtleties of it. So like the vocals kind of clash to me, but it's weird because like they're not clashing. They're just so on point that it sounds super like digital, and like a lot of crappy, as you would call them, like synthcore bands did that shit, and I just hated it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The problem with a lot of synthcore bands is they kind of went a little light on the synth,
Oh,
and it's like if you're gonna use synthesizers, you may as well go for it instead of just kind of pussyfooting around it and sort of like we got synths, but we're also a metalcore band. And
see, but the thing is like people like Prodigy, they make they make music that's more on the other side, where it's like all electronic, and then later they bring in like the more live elements. But with that sort of thing, it's more. See, the problem was they were making like breakdown music, but they were adding in synths to it just to kind of be like, oh no, we're like the like not so metal bands.
Yeah, it
like,
was almost like an afterthought, right?
Yeah, it definitely is. Like, see, whereas Prodigy, it's more like a cupcake, and then you put like filling in it. With like metalcore, it's more like sprinkles, and then you pour some filling on it.
Yeah, it's not really gonna work, is it?
It's kind of fucked.
Yeah.
To be frank.
I feel like synthcore is something which hasn't quite been figured out properly yet. But when lots of like, there's gonna be a small era, maybe like a dubstep sized era, of where the synthcore bands are really popular, like new metal was, and then they just fall. And then
I felt like
everything
that
just-
was like 2011, 2012.
Really?
Yeah, because now it's more like just straight deathcore. Like I feel like people aren't really putting sense in their music anymore. But it just might be me not listening to it anymore and just asking people like, what's like going on in metal right now, and then them
I don't
showing
know.
me shit that isn't like that anymore, and I'm just like, okay, well it's bad, but it's not as bad.
Right. I guess we can move on to the final album now.
Oh right, yeah,
The Day Is My Enemy.
right. I loved this album.
Really?
When it came out, I loved it a lot. I don't think the whole album's consistent, but like the tracks that are good are really good.
Yeah, I wasn't as big of a fan, although it might have been because I listened to 5 Prodigy albums before.
Oh
so
yeah,
I was a little bored.
we're probably experiencing some Prodigy fatigue.
But yeah, I definitely put it. I think it came out 2 years ago,
Oh yeah,
and I put it.
2015.
It's one of my top 10 albums of that year. So,
Oh yeah, dude, I loved it. It was fantastic.
and the rest of the albums were all metal, so that kind of shows you what.
Oh yeah, yeah, it was cool.
The only tracks I listed were the first 2, or the first one and the last one. The first one being the title track, which, and I think this was the theme, or at least the theme of the 2 tracks I listed, was back to that explosive Spitfire sort of thing,
Right.
but evolved through the Invaders Must Die modernization of the Prodigy, I guess.
Mm-hmm. With Day Is My Enemy. Oh, God, when I first heard that track, I was like, this reminds me of like Combo Christ. Like, are you making like aggro tech now? Like, are you like going back to rave music, but like, did you like flirt with the goths before you that? You came back here because like this really reminds me of like that booming like aggro tech stuff that Combo Christ was doing in like 2013 or 14, and like I really thought it worked. Day Is My Enemy is one of my favorite Prodigy songs. It's so good. It's so when I first heard it, I wasn't expecting to be blown away like that, but I was like, okay, this is the best Prodigy album since like Fat of the Land. Like this is fantastic.
Which is funny because I didn't feel that way. But
I know. I saw that. I was like, what?
I found that album a bit too generic, like generic Prodigy. But
Oh, I did not
think
feel that way.
maybe it's the I like it as an album, but I'm not really keen on any individual tracks.
Oh yeah.
That could be what it is.
I kind of feel the opposite way. Like there were a bunch of tracks that I didn't care for, but the tracks I did care for, I thought were great.
Yeah. Well, what are some of those tracks then?
Right. So there's a track on it called I'm just gonna spell it for lack of
Is it
pronunciation.
Ibiza?
Ibiza, yeah. So Ibiza, when I heard that, I was like, okay, so you guys are taking yourself way less seriously. So this is like a lot more like fun to listen to. Like I don't feel awkward now. Yeah, like that was just such a great track, and like all the videos for this album were fantastic too. Like it's probably some of the best videos like they've ever made, in my opinion. But beyond that, gosh, I wrote something about a lot of these tracks to be honest. So I guess the one I would comment on would be the one I would comment on is Invisible Sun. I felt like it was the most interestingly produced track on the album. Like, it kind of evoked memories of like mid 90s, like 9 Inch Nails kind of industrial sound, which is always what I think of when like Prodigy goes for like industrial, because like they don't go for like something like a Skinny Puppy. Like they go for something more like commercial, like that 9 Inch Nails.
Yeah, it's like a dark commercial, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's certainly dark. But yeah, like there's a lot of 9 Inch Nails in there. But what it was to me was oh right, yeah, this track it reminded me of like goth music that was coming out at the time, or like 2013. Well, no, not at the time, but like 2013. What was going on in goth music? Like there was a lot of like gloom and like shit on that track, and I was like, I don't think I've heard anything like this from Prodigy. Like this could be on like a goth playlist. Just give it a different name, different band, and like no one would know.
Yeah.
It was nuts. So what I wrote word for word was, I suppose it's like mid 1990s Nine Inch Nails, but it's also strangely gothic, and it's also stranger in the fact that it comes from all these English people with bad teeth. But of course, goth comes from the UK anyway. But yeah, they're mixing elements from Fat of the Land and newer trends, and they were forward thinking. But I'll talk about that after you give your kind of summary to the record. So, what do you think about "The Day Is My Enemy"?
As an album?
Oh yeah, as an album,
It
certainly.
was pretty decent. I would like to mention the other song I wrote down was "Wall of Death," which is the last song.
Oh right, yeah.
Which kind of goes back to that explosive drums of "The Day Is My Enemy."
I wrote one sentence. It is the day is my enemy if it was on meth.
Yeah, so it's,
Yeah.
I guess it's kind of like a reprise of "The Day Is My Enemy."
Oh yeah, I mean,
It's kind of like the two.
it is the last track.
Yeah, it's like
Day is my enemy is the first track.
It's like the two versions of Sgt. Pepper's, of the title tracks, the
Yeah.
title track and the reprise.
Yeah.
And I always like the reprise because it's got like a drum, which I don't know why it hasn't been sampled more often, because the drums on the reprise sound a lot more hip hop than. I mean, this is an album from '67, so it's
It probably has a lot to do with the rights to all the Beatles music being bought by freaking Michael Jackson.
that makes sense.
And if you violate copyright with the Jackson estate, you're just fucked, dude. Because they can just sue you. It's just insane.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. But oh right. So anyway, yeah. Wall of Death is a good track. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I guess I'd summarize this album as the sequel to Invaders Must Die.
I would not agree at all.
Really?
I would say it's the long lost son of Fat of the Land. It definitely is to me.
I think we agree to disagree on that.
Oh yeah, I guess so.
So I guess we're gonna try and rank them now.
Sure.
And I guess I'll just read out my ranking first, backwards. 6, Day Is My Enemy. Don't hit me, yo.
No, it's fine. I can see it on the
And then,
screen. Yeah.
5, Experience. 4, Music for the Jilted Generation. 3, Always Outnumbered, Never Outgunned. 2, Invaders Must Die. Not really sure about that one anymore. And number 1, obviously, The Fat of the Land.
I'm not sure. Maybe I should listen to it a little bit more and then change my opinions because
Yeah.
I've been bullied. I'm kidding. No.
Okay, what was your listing?
Okay. Here's my listing. Number 6. Invaders Must Die. Number 5. Always Outnumbered, Never Outgunned. Number 4, Experience. Number 3, Music for the Jilted. Number 2, Day Is My Enemy. And number 1, Fat of the Land.
Okay, so I guess we can agree that Fat of the Land is the best one.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, who would
So-
not agree with that?
I don't know what we're going to put second. Where did you put Jilted and Experience again?
I put Experience at 4 and Jilted at 3.
Okay. So let's maybe call Jilted 2. Wait, what was your 2 was Day Is My Enemy?
Tuesday is my enemy.
So let's
Yeah.
call Jilted 2.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair.
I guess I should let you have Day Is My Enemy as 3.
Perhaps. Yes.
And then
I'm pretty sure that's okay. 8 and 6. I mean, that would average out to 3.5 or something, right? Yeah.
and then I'm gonna call Always Outnumbered as 4.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, and then
Invaders Must Die can go higher if you want. I mean, Experience, I think we can agree is probably. Yeah.
all right.
I don't know. I like Experience more than Invaders.
Yeah, let's put Invaders last and Experience as 5.
All right.
Okay, so
Just knock down your 2 to last, dude. Are you not gonna back it up? I mean,
well, no, you kind of changed my mind on Invaders, so
Right. I mean, there were a lot of cool elements, but compared to all the rest of their albums, I definitely like it the least.
yeah. Okay, let's see if I can remember what that order is now. So 6, Invaders Must Die. 5, Experience.
Yeah.
4, Always Outnumbered, Never Outgunned. 3 was Days My Enemy.
Yeah. There's my enemy.
2 is Music for the Jilted, Generation. And number 1 is The Fat of the Land.
Wait a minute.
Did I miss one?
Did you put Jilted as 3 or 4?
3?
Okay.
No,
Okay.
2.
Okay. Right. All right. That was the confusion.
Okay.
There we go.
So that has been The Prodigy.
Yeah, that's the Prodigy.
And I guess talk about what's gonna be coming up in the future. Eventually, me and Sean are gonna do an industrial episode.
Right.
Should be fun.
Of course.
And then I'm gonna have another guest with me doing. We're gonna go through every year since 1968. And we're each gonna bring 3 albums, and we're gonna come up with a list of 5 for each year. So that's
All right.
something you can look forward to, and those will be some nice short episodes.
Oh yeah.
'Cause we're gonna split them up into all separate episodes, so
Oh yeah.
that should be cool. And I guess that's it. Goodbye.